very intelligent. Now, without diving too deep down the rabbit hole, his arrest and the circumstances around his arrest, he has kind of been predicting for months, if not longer than that, that he talks about the Matrix. And this is something that is also talked about in a lot of like young creators, typically young men, who potentially have seen his content and talk a lot about the Matrix, and that we live in the Matrix, and that the controllers of the Matrix are the people that have ended up putting him in jail. And he couldn't do anything about that. No matter who is out there, they are potentially at risk from being put under the control of the Matrix. Do you believe in the Matrix?
Well, not the Matrix as a concept. I mean, I think that's the label of it being the Matrix. Of course not. But in terms of the idea that governments can come together, that the press work in unison, that there is corruption within the systems as a whole, 100% believe it. You don't have to go far to find that information. It's all publicly available. Like, it's not like, now, how far does that go is the question. Do I believe that governments, that politicians, that press would act very significantly in order to protect their interests? Yeah, of course I do. That's of course that's going to happen. It's always been the case throughout human history. Okay, the interesting thing we've got at the moment is that you've got the introduction of the internet has changed the way that we communicate forever. And if you look at it from a standpoint from maybe what Andrew would talk about, and bear in mind, I don't engage with a lot of his content overall. I've watched quite a bit of it, and I agree with a lot of stuff he says. There's certain things I don't agree with. But if you think about the kind of the internet, and if you go from a skeptical standpoint and say, actually, the internet was the perfect way to control the masses, to get information out there to the masses, and to create a certain narrative. Now, that's all well and good when you can actually control the information. But once you lose control of the narrative, the internet becomes the weapon against you. It becomes the fast spreading virus that you don't want it to become. So do I believe that people that speak? I mean, there's obvious, say for instance, there's loads of people online that are shadow banned, that you have to specifically type in their name to get onto their page. In fact, you search for them, can't find them unless you click on something that they're posted on different social media platforms. And you think, hold on, why are they back? What are they? And it's almost like there is a lot of elements of control being had from social media companies. Now, where's that direction come from? Who knows? It might be their own individual policies. Are they working together? But no, I do believe that there is. It's hard. It's without a sound. It's very, very tricky, because I think I speak to people about this, and a lot of people will touch on different subjects of it, and then of this kind of matrix, or like ruling elite, or I don't know, corruption, and they'll understand different bits of it. Even if I go on stick to a subject that I'm really familiar with, and talk about medical literature, then we know that for a longest period of time, pharmaceutical companies were producing well, you know that pharmaceutical companies control the medical literature. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones that can fund research. They're the ones that can carry out research. Now, there's probably no surprise that the largest intervention that happens within medicine is pharmacological. It's tablets. It's injections. They control the literature. And there's a good book by Ben Goldacre called Bad Pharma, and he also wrote a book called Bad Science. And he talks about the corruption within pharmaceutical companies, and he talks about the. I think it was maybe quite a few years ago that pharmaceutical companies didn't have to register any of their research prior to conducting it. So, and I believe this was in America. I'll have to go back and look at it, but so essentially they could carry out 10 studies, 10 different trials, and once they get the one study that supports their narrative, they'll publish it. And then they'll just do that again and again and again. Now, all that data from the other 9, see you later, gone. And they'll just push a certain narrative, this drug is beneficial for this. If you look at a lot of the drugs, you look at the numbers needed to treat, and which basically means like how many people you need to treat in order to get a positive response, and numbers needed to harm, how many people you need to treat to get the negative response harmful. A lot of these drugs have got real high numbers needed to harm. Like they've got like you've got, for instance, it only takes one in 100 people are going to get a harmful effect from it, or 1 in 50, or like paracetamol, for instance, has got quite a high, also a low number needed to harm. So it's very, very common for people to get side effects from it, but it's very, very commonly used medication. It's also quite good for a lot of variety of different things. So I know that happens within research. I know that also when you're trying to publish even more lower level stuff, there's control over what gets published in medical journals. Mates, favors, all this type of stuff. There's also, but there's always something behind that's driving it. So I was reading some really interesting Twitter feeds yesterday about this whistleblower has come out talking. He used to work for Coca-Cola, and he was talking about how Coca-Cola used to pay groups in order to target other groups in order to basically to get the narrative across that sugar wasn't bad for you, that it didn't cause diabetes and obesity, etc. And these were conversations that were happening in boardrooms openly, right? Everyone was probably non-disclosure agreement, sign this, don't talk about it. So if corruption exists and we can visibly see it at that level, I don't have any doubts that it exists in the areas that we can't see or don't understand.